views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
The following audio is via a Skype call.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Wow. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Welcome to Transformation Talk Radio. And we have got an incredible lineup for you today. You know, we're going to kick it off by talking about intuition on demand. Then we're going to talk about the Kabbalah. Oh, my gosh. This is like a full day, picking up where we left off at 8 o'clock this morning with Colette's show. And why not, Benny? Why not keep it going? Why not keep the flow going?
Gotta love keeping the flow going.
You gotta love keeping the flow going. That's what today. We're just like a lot of it. Just totally it. But why? Well, here's why. We could choose not to use our intuition, or we could choose to use our intuition. Well, what happens when we're faced with that decision? And I'm not talking about like everyday big Kundalini awakening moments. How about every day? How about intuition on demand? Yes, I did say that. Intuition on demand. Today, Dr. Lisa Kay joining me here today. Intuition on Demand is her fabulous book, a step-by-step guide to powerful intuition, what you can trust. Now, let me just say this about Lisa. First of all, I want to tell you that she and I come to the table with a few things under our belt. Yeah, you know us on radio, television, all of those things. But what is it about her that had her specialize in intuition? I love this. Yes. Why is it that we get to talk with her about intuition, accurate notion that, wait a minute, that's got to be for somebody sitting in the, going over there, sitting in Tibet, sitting on a mountain, meditating 24/7, not talking to anybody. But is that true? Is that true in today's world that we live in? Lisa, it's great to have you here. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Pat. It's wonderful to be with you. I'm really excited to talk about this today.
I'm excited because what I love about this is I think we have, what is the expression? Proof perfect of intuition and how it might work. For me, I was just on a call a few minutes ago talking about how this radio, let's call it a radio thing, started by dialing a wrong phone number and not hanging up. But for you, I want to get into this intuition on demand. And yet at the same time, what's the difference between intuition and luck? I think we got to open it up with that, don't you think?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually think they kind of go together. Mm-hmm. I think that what intuition does for you is it taps into information that is that's kind of connected to the universe, connected to, beyond us, because that's what intuition is, knowing without knowing how you know it. And then when you are connected to that, then all kinds of wonderful synchronicities happen because you're being guided to the right place at the right time. And then all of a sudden, quote, lucky things happen, right?
Yeah.
And what a better way to live.
Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit about you, if you don't mind, because sure. I think it's really important for us to share our stories. I got to ask you this, because I know for me, I did not Not ever, nowhere, no way, not on any resume, not on any kind of thing. She's going to be, when she grows up, she's going to do this. She's going to be like the host of the Dr. Pat show, like a number one show, and then, owner of a network. No way. I stuttered in high school. This was not going to be on my thing. How about you? When did you have the sense that, I'm going to be doing this?
Oh gosh, I never had the sense that I was going to be doing this. Just like you, I was like, this is like, in fact, if you had said to me, 10, 20 years ago, this is what you're going to be doing, I'd be like, yeah, no, really? That's not me at all. I mean, I started out, unlike others who are very intuitive, and have those, wonderful, innate skills that they were just happened to be good at a young age. I was not. I didn't have any of that. And I thought it was the coolest thing on earth, though. I thought, gosh, if you could be really intuitive and if you could know what's going to happen, if you could, have that skill, that would be just like magic. And so I would actually go out and I'd play with it. I tried to see if I was, intuitive. Did I have any of these psychic skills? And so I would go out and I actually got a set of Zener cards. And I don't know if you know what those are, but they're quote, they're the little cards that have the shapes on them, the hearts and the square and the circle. And you have to predict which one's going to come up. Well, yes. I got them all wrong. I was bad. I was so bad at it. And I was like, okay, so I can't do this. So for me to think that I could actually become highly intuitive, which I learned how to do, was, far beyond what I ever thought I could do.
Well, and part of this is, getting a sense of signs. I want to talk about this for a minute before we jump into the book even further. You're a graduate of Columbia. I'm a graduate of Columbia, went back to school later in life. Here's what I want to say. I didn't realize till recently that intuition shows up more times in our lives than we could cognitively record. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, our mind can say, oh, yeah, dial the wrong phone number. Oh, yeah, Lisa, right? But there's this other part of intuition that just does not get any airtime. Okay, I want to ask you to just give us a sense of this as we get into the conversation. So somebody the other day said to me, we don't even understand, Pat, at your age, but even when you were younger, how you became so good at table tennis, right? And so I play table tennis, but I play with a style that you would be watching like at the Olympics, right? And they said, we don't get it. What did you learn how to play, Pat? You learned in like 1 year, then you learned how to do this. Here's what I know, because it happened to me the other day. 80% of what I do on the court is intuition, 20% is skill. Is that how we could live our lives? I want to ask you about that. Is that a way that we can live our lives?
Oh, sure. I think one of the things I always say is that, there is that saying that we only use 10% of our brains. So the question is, what's in the other 90%? And our ability to gather all this information that our minds and our bodies are picking up through our senses and our brain is processing is just so vast, so much data, that we can't really function if we were paying attention to it and trying to figure out what to do with it all consciously. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on that's unconscious, that's going on in the other parts of our brains and our minds and even our bodies that we're not aware of. And even to the extent that there are other, quote, brains, so to speak, within your own body, within the nervous system. And, that has within itself its own ability to process information, to remember, and to learn. And so what's going on there? And so I think that's the information and that you're drawing on in that 80%. That you say is more of an intuitive thing for you. Does that sound, does that match for you?
Yeah. And you know what I love in your book, one of the things, and for those of you just tuning in, Dr. Lisa Kay joining me here today, Intuition on Demand's fabulous book, a step-by-step guide to powerful intuition you can trust. One of the things I loved in reading your book, and just so you know, I do read the books.
Oh, that's nice.
There's a statement that you say early on, and then you also repeat it later on. Developing your intuition can change your world. See, you don't say developing your intuition can change your life. You don't say that. You say developing intuition can change your world. And I take that very differently. That is really expansive. Can you tell us how it can change our world? And what have you seen in working with others?
Well, I think one of the things, it can change your world because everything you touch, everything you do is now infused with your intuitive guidance. So when you become highly intuitive and you learn how to use it and make it part of your life, it'll be giving you information all the time that you recognize and you can act on. So whether you're deciding what to do, what to choose for dinner tonight, or whether you're trying to choose a doctor for some illness that you just got, or where you're going to go in terms of your career, which job to take, or maybe even looking for a soulmate, is this the guy for me? All of that all of those decisions are now infused with higher guidance, with guidance from your intuition that's actually pulling in information from all different places where we talked about, and that you're always going to make a better decision. And when you have that, when you know that the decisions you're making are going to be for your best interest, that it's so comforting. It's calming. Yeah. You always have somebody. It's like somebody's always got your back. You always have if you want to call it your guides and your angels, are there giving you the messages you need to hear. And what a wonderful life that is. So that's what I meant by it can change your world and in everything you do. And, one of the things, I have a story for you.
Yeah, please.
And I tell this when I was, what happened to me is kind of reversing back, as I was saying before, that I started out not being intuitive, though I thought it was the most amazing thing, but they always say that everybody can be intuitive. So I thought, well, let me go and try and study it. So me being the scientist and the engineer, and I became a scientist because I want to know how the world works, and put all the pieces together that made logical sense. I went and I studied intuition, and I went through the science of it because I have a degree in psychobiology as well, and that helped give me formulate that perspective, to the point where I also studied metaphysics, because that's the area where a lot of this has information in the metaphysical arena. And I put all the pieces together, and I started to practice, and I was doing intuitive sessions and readings for other people, only because that's how you can practice, and that's how you do it. And I got really good at it. It was so good that I was actually, people would try to get sessions with me, but they couldn't. I was a sold out intuitive coach, intuitive reader, which surprised me. Now, this was somebody who got all the Zener cards wrong. And I was stunned that, wow, I came up with something that worked, and works for me. And then one day it saved my life. And this is, as you were talking about, what can intuition do for you? And I didn't expect this, but I got to the point where I'm using it now, and whenever I needed it, and for picking, restaurant to, gosh, now I've got this problem. It was during the summer of 2008, and I got the flu, which was really odd because people don't usually get the flu in the summer. And but along with the flu symptoms, I was having these bouts of my heart racing, and I was short of breath, and I felt like I was going to pass out when I was lying in bed. I thought that was really bizarre. And when it kept happening, the come and go, and then it got so bad that I was shaking so hard that I couldn't hold a glass of water. And it was in the middle of the night. And so I called the ambulance, and they took me to the emergency room. And they The doctors, I wasn't shaking anymore. The doctors took some blood and they said, oh, we've discovered you've got bacteria in your blood, but that's okay. You just go home and go to the doctor and he'll give you some antibiotics, some pills, right? What most doctors do, and you'll be fine. So I go home and I did that and I took the pills and they didn't help. I kept getting these bouts and they were getting worse. And it started to get to the point where now they were more frequent. And one time that it happens again, I was lying in bed. Same thing, heart racing, couldn't breathe. I was lying down and my hands turned white. And I went back to the hospital. Same thing, took blood, still had bacteria in your blood. Doctor says, oh, well, you're not call. Some doctors have offices, they're not calling me back. I'm getting these bouts, they're coming back, it's worse. Now it's at the point where I can't stand up for longer than 2 minutes. And I was guided by my intuition to pull this book off the shelf. And it was How to Find the Best Pediatrician. Odd, but I thought, all right, well, my intuition wants me to read it, so I'll read it. So I'm reading the book, and the word pediatrician comes up over and over and over again. And I realized, wait a minute, my pediatrician is a friend of mine, and maybe he knows of a doctor who'll see me. So I go to call him, and my intuition says, leave a detailed message. He's away on vacation. He'll be back later. So I left a detailed message. He calls back later, and he says, I know exactly what you need to do. I have a friend, a doctor, a specialist, an infectious disease specialist who will see you tomorrow. You need to go right away. So I went the next day. It was Monday morning. He did some tests, and he called me back, and he said, this doctor said, we know what's wrong with you. You have a heart infection, and you need to go to the hospital. So he put me in the hospital, and they gave me intravenous antibiotics, and they cured me. So what was happening was I was going into what's known as sepsis, and all the other doctors were ignoring me. And the endocarditis, which is what this is a very insidious disease that if you don't catch it right away, you can actually die very easily from it. So that's how my intuition saved me. It got me a doctor. Yeah. It got me to a doctor.
I cannot believe you just even shared that story. And, I've shared with the listeners, and I'm not going to take the time today, but I came down with a mystery disease in 2004, 6 months after I signed on to do this by dialing that wrong phone number. And all I can remember is how much I started to doubt myself, that paying for airtime seemed like the most bizarre thing for somebody that just graduated with honors from a PhD program, right? But I couldn't do the thing that I was supposed to do. It was too depressing for me. I knew too much now. And I got to tell you, I found Dr. Darvish because the angel lady told me. The angel lady told me to look up T3 for thyroid. And I Googled it, and 2 doctors came up. And I immediately picked Dr. Darvish. She and I went on a journey that, like you, doctors, tests, there's nothing wrong with you. You may have this, you may have that. The bottom line is that woman saved my life. Isn't it interesting? You and I are sitting here today, and we're talking about intuition, and both of our lives have been saved by our intuition, right?
Yes, same parallel.
I don't think there's any mistake in that, do you?
No. It's all meant to be.
Right.
It's wonderful.
And that's why I interview people like you that have this gift, because what you've gone on to do in your work and in your book, Intuition on Demand, is what you're championing is this idea that you and I are not different than every other thousands of listeners listening to this show. We're not different. We're not different. No. You learned out of desperation. I'm sorry to say that, but I learned out of desperation. So you don't want our listeners to have to go to desperation to learn, right? So tell us about what you developed.
Well, so that's, once that happened, when I realized, wow, it saved my life. And I want people to be able to do this for themselves. You can't always, as you say, go to somebody for advice because they're not always available. And if you can get the advice from within yourself and get the perfect advice for you, with perfect guidance and information that you need to know right now, then things are going to change. Your whole world will change for you. Your life will be different. And that's what I wanted to share with people, as opposed to, being able to give them the messages. And so what I started to do was I started to share what I taught myself, what I learned from doing, and basically not only studying science and studying the metaphysics and the process, and then actually watching a lot of other really highly intuitive people do what they do, figuring out, the golden nuggets. I took my techniques that work for me, and I started to share it with my friends, and I started to share it with some other people who were interested. And we did a little group, and I showed it to them, and they started to have some results. We all had a lot of fun, and the group started to grow. And now at some point it grew over a couple of years, had, over 150 people come and go through that group, and they loved it. And I developed a weekend course because as we were going along, there's more and more information that I had accrued to help people understand this. And that was a weekend course and called Developing Your Intuition Level 1. And then I developed that into an online course, and people have taken it all across the world now internationally, which is really, really cool. And then I also started to speak about it and teach people through going to events and expos and speaking on intuition and giving people some highlights of the technique. And then I was getting feedback from people that they would leave the talk after an hour talk, and they would say they were able to they get their intuition to work for them immediately.
Yeah.
Like one woman, she said, I took the subway home from your lecture, and I knew exactly the minute it was supposed to pull into the station. Now, if you know how to ride, the New York subway the subways are random. So and she knew the minute it was going to come into her station, and she was floored. There were results like that. And then people would say to me in the, here and there and in the lectures, they'd say, do you have a book that I could read? And I didn't have a book. And I was like, well, and they're like, well, where can we learn this? And I'm like, well, I kind of put it together myself. It's kind of a conglomeration of a lot of things. And anyway, so long story short, I wrote a book, and I put it all in the book. And
it's in the book.
Now
everything's in the book. I mean, I was actually surprised reading the book because I'm like, well, wait a minute. She's telling me exactly how to do this. I'm saying, like, Lisa's like taking me through this, telling me actually how to do it. But more importantly, what I love about what you did in this book, Lisa, is you gave us, let me just call it, intuitive situations. And what I mean by that is one in particular I want to talk about when we come back from break is, well, wait a minute. What if you're seeing things? What if you get shown things? And then how about our thoughts? Thoughts, are they intuition? You've put so much in this book that most people take 5 books to write, that this has got to be a way to, to invite people to engage in practice. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Intuition on Demand. You know what? 1-800-930-2819. What are your questions? Do you have something that you want to practice this technique with on air? Do you want to find out like why you're on the fence with something and maybe where you should go or what you might do? Are you kind of like Lisa and me, and where you're thinking, yeah, I know I don't feel well, but I'm not getting any answers? 1-800-930-2819. When we come back, I'm going to also ask Lisa to tell you how to find out about where you can get the book, how you can find out more about her, how you can work with her. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back.
I've run away from love so many times. I've run.
Do you ever feel as if you're working twice as hard but only getting half as far? Are you trying to connect with your path in life and finding it elusive? Mainstream Metaphysics Radio is a weekly call-in show where we harness our connection with the universe and use what is in our power to affect change for optimal success and happiness. This hit show bridges the divide between what is and what we do not know. Eve, named one of the country's top psychics, also known as the MBA psychic, invites you on this journey for this live call-in show with readings, featured guests, leaders, and visionaries in both business and spiritual callings. So join Eve Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com as she takes metaphysics mainstream. For more information about Eve, visit EliteTarot.com. That's EliteTarot.com.
Awareness is universal. Establishing a living awareness through meditation brings peaceful, healthy, and creative well-being into your everyday life. The practice of living awareness, Spirit Fire's own meditation practice, is built on this belief and is designed for every level of practitioner. Each year, Spirit Fire hosts living awareness meditation retreats that allow you to explore the practice in depth at our retreat center in beautiful Western Massachusetts. Introduce yourself to meditation and the practice at the Foundation's retreat. Attend, in silence, a silent meditation retreat focused on mindfulness, presence, and nature, or be engaged with the meditation sittings themselves at the Deepening Retreat. Start adding to your awareness and attend a meditation retreat designed to cultivate consciousness in your everyday life. For details on attending a Living Awareness meditation retreat, visit upcoming events at www.spiritfire.com.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show, Talk Radio to Thrive By. I am so thrilled to be talking to all of you. We have got talk radio for all of us. Are you ready and willing and able to accept all of the abundance you can muster up in your life? Check us out, thedrpatshow.com, transformationtalkradio.com, transformationradio.fm. Oh my goodness.
Be you plus live your purpose equals joy. That's the motto of Unstuck Joy with Vicki Todd. Vicki believes you were born with gifts that are meant to make the world brighter. Each show will feature an art visioning journal prompt to help you create your way to soul clarity. If you're ready to get unstuck and create more joy, this show is for you. Tune in every month on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit VickiWorldArt.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Intuition on Demand, a step-by-step guide to powerful intuition you can trust. Dr. Lisa Kay joining me here today. And before we jump into this, I want to just say to everyone, we have got the phone lines open. If you want to get some help on figuring out something in your life that is just really causing you a complete confused state of mind, and you just can't see your way in, quote, figuring it out. And if you're anything like Lisa and I, in just what she just shared, let's get you some help. 1-800-930-2819. Lisa, before we just jump ahead, Intuition on Demand, it's the book. Where can people get a copy of it? And the other thing I wanted to ask you, how can people find out more about you? How can they listen to you on radio, television, wherever you are?
Oh, well, the easiest thing is to go to my website, and which is the same as where you can find the book, too. It's kind of easy. You go to intuitionondemandbook.com, and that'll take you to the book page, but that's where my website is. And everything is there. You've got my events, my podcast. I've got a lot of nice freebie things out there in terms of a blog and podcasts, which are all centered around intuition, tips, how to use it, when to use it, and things like that for conscious living.
I love it. Now we're gonna practice a little bit, but before we jump into the practice idea here, I made a couple of comments before the break. One of the things I said is, and then during the break, I said, first of all, I never knew what I was doing to get my intuition to work. I never knew it. You know what I mean? I never knew that I was actually doing something methodologically, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. So therefore, everything was like inconsistent, right?
Yes.
But you've developed an intuition on demand technique. And I want to talk about that before we jump into whether or not intuition is thoughts. Tell us about this technique, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start with a myth actually first. That one of the things that people feel is that intuition just happens. And for most of us, it does because we're not aware of it and we've never really worked with it. So, but intuition is something that you can actually make happen. And the first step in the technique makes it happen on demand. And that first step is to ask it a question. Now, the reason why this works is because your intuition will answer a question. Just like when you ask yourself a question, you will automatically answer it. Well, your intuition also automatically answers. It's just that you don't hear it because you're too busy thinking and using your thinking mind and judging and criticizing. But your intuition will actually speak. And your intuition is actually another part of your brain processing that speaks in a slightly different way. It speaks in a word or two, not a lot of words, or it might be a flash of an image, or it might be a feeling. And so that's going on when you ask a question. That's what's responding. So that's the first step. So now the second step is to be open, and so that you can actually recognize when your intuition is giving you those little pieces of information.
Yeah.
So what do I mean by that? And I usually characterize be open. I was thinking about how do I explain to people, how do you be open?
Yeah, good
and I
idea.
realized that, because I like to be, really tangible because that's me. The vagueness kills me. So what is it to be open? Well, the best way I can describe it is the state you're in when you ask the question, where's the bathroom? So people are like, well, what do you mean, where's the bathroom? Well, when you ask the question, you're somewhere you've never been before, you got to go to the bathroom, and you ask, where's the bathroom? Now, at that moment, after you ask it, you pause, you're all ears, you're open, and you're waiting for an answer. You're not trying to second guess what they're going to tell you. You're not criticizing what they're going to tell you. You're just open, and when they tell you, you go with it. Right? You trust it.
Yeah.
You don't say, oh, he's wrong. So that's the state you're in. It really is that state of being open. Where's the bathroom? And when you're in that moment of, where is it? And you're waiting for the answer, that's the kind of state you have to be in. So you ask your intuition question, number one. Number two, be open, like where's the bathroom? And then number three, you're going to collect. So it's nice. It goes in a ABC format. A, ask question. B, be open. C, collect. Now what you're going to do, what do I mean by that? You're now collecting the pieces of intuitive pop-ups, I call them, that come to you. Now, what is that? Well, once you ask the question, things are going to pop at you. It's going to be a feeling. It'll be, maybe you'll get an image. Now, the image, again, is something that pops up inside your mind. So it'll, and some people think that they don't have pictures in their mind, but I think we mostly do.
Yeah.
Or it might be a word, or your eye might be all of a sudden drawn to something, and you find yourself staring at the clock on the wall. Well, that's your intuition giving you information. And then, so now you pick that piece, the clock on the wall, and then you do the next step, which is D, to do that again. You're going to ask again, because that clock on the wall is like, well, now my intuition is giving me a piece. It doesn't make sense to me. See, now this is the key part. People don't tell you this is what they do when they're actually getting intuitive information. They're actually going back and getting more information. They just think, oh, well, tuned in and then they got this download of, this huge long story. Well, they're actually collecting pieces of the story until it makes sense. So the fourth step is D, to go back and ask a question, do it again. And you're going to ask your intuition, why are you showing me this clock? And you might hear running out, right? So, and then you can go back and ask your intuition, clock, running out. What are these two pieces? What do you mean by that? Give me more information. And you might get the sense of rushing, right? So so now you start to see clock, running out, rushing. Maybe you're running out of time. That's the sense you get. So that may be the meaning. It's sort of like what I say is let's say you're walking, it's foggy out, and you're walking down a street and you can't really see anything around you, and it's really dense fog, and you're going down the road and you start to see, a hint of a tree, and then maybe a mailbox and a driveway pops up, and then as you get closer, you start to see more and more. And that's the same thing with your intuition. You start to get more and more pieces, and it starts to formulate meaning for you. So I'll give you a little story how this works.
Well, I love this idea, because let's just take a look at it.
Sure.
Because I told you about this idea for this radio thing. Once I said yes to this, I didn't know why. And let's talk about that. Sometimes intuition may not make logical sense, right? Is that because we think
Absolutely.
it should? We think it should, right? And the other thing I would love for you to talk about is we also think that sometimes that we will get the exact answer to what we're looking for in the next indicated thing we do. But for me, it was the angel lady, look up T3 thyroid, looked them up, 2 doctors, intuitively picked Dr. Darb. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and
exactly.
Can we talk about the chain of events of I call it intuition's chain of events. Don't break the link of the chain of events. Just follow them.
Exactly. And I love that you said that, because people feel that they're going to get in fact, I thought that when I was starting to work with this, I was like, I want the answer. Well, we all want the answer, but we don't always get the answer. And we get a guidance, I think, as you're saying, that kind of puts you on the next step that leads you to where it's best for you to go. And I think, just in parallel, that what I was talking about in my story was my intuition didn't tell me, oh, you got to call Dr. ABC. It said, go read that book on the shelf over there. and it's like, oh, I don't know why I have to do that, but okay, I'm going to do it. And that's the great thing about working with your intuition and building your trust is it kind of forces you to do that. You have to go, okay, well, let me see where that's going to lead me. And sometimes it's actually fun. It's like a treasure hunt. It's like, ooh, let's see where that goes.
It is. And, let's talk about another myth, if I could. One of the things I think we don't talk about enough is we talk about intuition as if it has this discrimination capability. So let me say what I mean. So, for example, it's okay that you and I figured out like the right doctor to go to, but don't use your intuition for money stuff, because no. That's like a no. Yeah, don't do that. But that is like so not the truth. See, so there's this notion, this belief that intuition is only for these higher orders. And we got to talk about that, because my friends used to drag me to the racetrack in New York City, up in Yonkers racetrack. My friends, at a young age, I had a fake ID. Did I just say that? They used to drag me into Yonkers racetrack on some ungodly hour of the night during school so I could pick out the horses. And until I got really bored with doing it, then I wouldn't pick out good horses anymore. But can you talk to that? About this? I know you're thinking, but that's what happened to me. It was like, no, this is not fun anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And so then I started to pick losers.
Oh. Just so they would leave you alone.
I don't think it was that. I think I just wasn't into it. I think I just stopped listening. Can you talk about these beliefs we have about intuition and what we think it should be used for versus what it could be used for?
I think part of the answer to that is where the information is coming from. And I like to tell people that we don't really know where it's coming from, but and it doesn't matter as long as it works for you all the time. But I like to believe, and the research I've done points to and indicates that the information's coming from outside of us, and from what I would like to say is either our higher selves or our guides or whatever it is that's the universal consciousness that is everything. And it's passing on to us information that's for our highest good, for our betterment. And so in that case, you want to use your intuition for having that better life, so to speak. And in that perspective, whether you're winning at the horse races or not is ultimately probably not the ultimate best for your whole life. And so, why not use this golden opportunity to guide you to find things that are wonderful for you in bigger things and grander things, or even just in your everyday life, because you don't know where your guidance is supposed to take you. And that's part of the joy of it all, is the journey. Where am I supposed to go? And so I think, from that sense, that's where you want to use it. Now, that being said, you could use your intuition for all kinds of things. But don't be surprised that if you try to use your intuition on, the winning the lottery, that it may not work too well for you. And that's probably for two reasons. One is, again, what's for your highest best good may not be winning the lottery. Yeah. And the other thing is that we got a lot of stuff going on about money, and that gets in the way. So.
Oh yeah. Now let's talk. This is what I love. Let's talk about some of the tips that you have, because this is really the question. I mean, I was looking at this and I asked myself, connecting the dots. Let's go through a little bit of the technique, because people say to me, Pat, what were you asking for when you dialed that wrong number in 03 and within 10 minutes pulled out a credit card and bought 3 months of airtime at $10,000 on an internet-only station? They were asking me, what were you thinking? The question is, what was I asking for, isn't it?
Yes. Right. And again, it can be, it sounded like you had an intention.
I did.
We all have intentions to do what's best for us and to move forward. And we're I don't know if the time were you thinking about, well, hey, I want a good change in my life. I want to go forth and do more. I don't know what that is. And then something bing happened and you dialed.
No, here it is. I had just started this thing called crust busting because I was so depressed. I had the metaphor created that, if you're depressed and you cannot get off the couch and the remote control is your best friend, then you are just so crusted over. So I created these cards. On the back of the card, I said, by the end of this year, 2003, I want to reach 1 million people and help them live life full out. Within 6 months, I had reached 1 million people doing something I had no intention to do on radio. So that was my thing. I wanted to reach 1 million people to help them live life full out, and I still do. That hasn't changed. And that was my question. I didn't say, how do I? I said, I want to do it. But subconsciously, I asked, well, what do I need to do to get this done, right?
Yes. And your intuition knows, because it knows before you even get a chance to ask the question, because it's with you. And it will be giving you that guidance, and you obviously followed it and didn't have the hesitation.
I didn't
to kind of interrupt. And
Yeah.
so, and you went with it. Were you, when you did it, were you surprised that after you did it, like, what am I doing?
No, I didn't do that. I did it and I began the process and I was really excited. My problem was I shared it with my partner and my friends, and they thought, yeah, this is a good hobby she's got. But then when KKNW found me in '04 and said, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe it, we have 5 days a week. And I whipped out another credit card and continued to do that. They wanted to have me committed. That's what they wanted to have me do. Looking back now, right? Looking back, nobody questions it anymore. But this is really the next part of this. And I know we have a short time left. Once we get the answer, how do we build up our resilience to move forward?
Well, that's actually part of the process. And if we were to roll it back a little bit and say, and this is a great question, because people say to me, well, how do I know the difference between my intuition, whether I'm making it up? And how do I, make it consistent? And the way you do it is you have to use it and practice. And it's more important that you practice all the time. It's like any skill that you build. And it's also how you build trust and faith. You take a little step at a time, and then, whoa, that worked. And you do it again, and it worked again. And, every time, I get this feeling, I know it means that. And every time I hear it this way in my head, it's accurate. It's right on. Now I know it's there. It becomes real for you. Because it's in your experience, and also you've honed the skill, just like any other skill that you develop. So it gets to the point where now you're working side by side in synergy with your intuition, and you just know to follow it. And you're also used to following it. That's probably another part of the training, is that we train ourselves or condition ourselves out of following it because we're afraid. And then, and then we say, oh, well, we build this habit of not following it. Well, you got to build a habit of following it. And then eventually it's like, okay, I'm in the groove. I have the momentum. I follow. I know when I'm following this feeling, or when when I do work with my intuition, these things start to happen. And then you just keep doing it. It's just like learning how to drive. And you can keep going. I think, and then the rest is built on that faith and trust, because you know that it works for you.
And one of the things you say in the book, which I love, you say many things in the book, but you clearly give us some tips for looking at how to ask for a sign as well. And I love that you put it in here, because sometimes all we may have is that question, is to ask for a sign. For me, I now know that if I find a penny, heads up, that's Linda's mom who passed away, because that's what she used to do. She was all about the pennies. Pat, save your pennies, save your pennies. I saved my pennies. I bought washers, vacations. So she's about the penny heads up. So if I find a penny heads up, I say, oh, thank you, Joan. If I find a penny heads down, I don't. I was at a meeting a week ago, got up from the meeting. There are 5 circular tables, everybody abandoned. There was a penny heads up in 5 tables right in the middle.
Wow.
How does that even happen, right? So tell us about how people might call into looking for these signs.
Okay. So let me preface all this with, because I'm the scientist, and people are going to go, well, why do science, what is that? Isn't that hooey? Why does that happen? This is just coincidence. And I used to think that too. But then I realized, well, if I believe everything is made of energy. Energy is one thing. It cannot be created nor destroyed. It only changes form. We're all connected to that energy, whether it's solid, whether a solid thing, a table, a chair, a thought, all the same thing. So we are all connected to the same thing. And if we're all connected in that way, then why not? Why couldn't that universal consciousness power be able to bring us signs, because it's all the same? And our intuition helps us in noticing those things as well. And so the signs, one of the things you can do is you can ask for a sign. So what does that mean? One of the things that I love, one of the ways I got into this is connecting with angels. I love angels, and I know that the number 4 is an angel number. So I said, well, I want you to show me that you're around me, and how to, so show me the number 4. And I would see 4 everywhere. But then I thought, being the scientist, the engineer, well, you got 1 out of 10, because we only have 10 numbers, to see a number 4. I said, all right, let me see 2 4s. And I started to see 44 everywhere. Being the doubting Thomas, I was like, well, all right, let's make it harder. Let me see 3 4s. And I started to see 3 4s everywhere. And every time I saw that, I knew my angels were there with me and telling me that they're there. You know what I did? I went farther, Pat. I now ask for 4 4s.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
And would you believe it? I see 4 4s. I see 4 4s everywhere. And that's not very common, but for me, it's common because I see it all the time, posted on social media, another set of 4s. And again, that's one way that you can work with those signs and be in communication with something that's beyond you, and also with whatever your intuitive guidance is able to give you. Now, that being said, I want to put out a little note warning. Signs are going to be very obvious. You don't have to force it. And I have run into a lot of people who are. They want to force the sign, and that what happens is we get a little too hung up over that, and we get a little anxious, and you got to let it go. The sign, it's going to be just like you did. You let it go. All of a sudden, you saw the penny everywhere, right? And all those tape. So there, you can't miss that, right?
I love it. Yeah, I know it. You can't. Well, I hope you'll come back, because there's so much more in here that I would love for us to talk about. Again, how can people find out more about you? And thank you so very much for today. And thank you for really putting the words to something that people in everyday life can do.
Oh, thank you so much. I would love to come back, Pat. I had a great time, and it's intuition is just, it is the most awesomest thing.
I know.
Intuition, you can reach me at, in my book at intuitionondemandbook.com. So that's easy, intuitionondemandbook.com. And everything is there. You can find out all about me on
I
my
love
website.
it. And Intuition on Demand, guess what? This is a step-by-step guide for everyone. Everyone. Thank you, Lisa. You rock.
Thanks, Pat.
Hey,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Lisa's got a radio show too, so tune in. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, EJ is in the house. For all of you out there, also on Facebook Live video with him. Yes, Mystic Living Radio, deep spiritual wisdom, practical advice, Kabbalistic wisdom for the 21st century. Here we go. We'll be right back.
Preceding audio was via a Skype call.